Hi and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 2020 in review. I'm going to talk about my 2020, what birds I photographed, what rare birds I photographed, and my overall best birds that I photographed in 2020. So come along and enjoy this adventure. Well, 2020 was a very hard year for birding, especially bird photography. I had set a goal of 300 species of birds to photograph in North Carolina, and I photographed 206 species of birds. Because of restrictions, because of canceled trips, because of, I think one of the biggest contributing factors to it was that there was just areas that were closed, and they were closed during prime time. So one example would be the Blue Ridge Parkway. The Blue Ridge Parkway is a national forest or a national refuge that basically goes from Virginia all the way down to Georgia, and this is one of the best places to bird for warblers in North Carolina. That was closed for 2.5 months, so we weren't able to go there. Parts of the Outer Banks, which is a chain of islands that go from Delaware all the way down to South Carolina that you can drive on, were closed for months. These areas were also affected by hurricanes. Coastal towns didn't want people coming into them because of the spread of COVID. It was a huge impact on my ability to travel around the state. And not just that, I didn't want to be in situations where I was going to get exposed to the virus myself. I was afraid of that too. So I was very concerned about my ability so I didn't want to go out with large groups of people and go birding. I didn't want to go with anybody basically and do anything. So it was basically my wife and myself that went out. And the ways I did see birds was that we did join message boards and message groups about rare birds in North Carolina. I communicated with people on Facebook and other social medias to find birds that I was looking for. And an example of that would be the rusty blackbird. This is a rare bird here in North Carolina. I did photograph it in somebody's backyard, and I photographed a huge amount of birds in people's backyards or in parks in small areas because I couldn't go to the Outer Banks. I couldn't go to federal forests or things like that. So a huge amount of birds that I photographed were in people's backyards. And this was one of the things that I was able to do. I was able to get life birds that way. The rusty blackbird is a life bird for me to photograph it. Another bird that I was able to photograph in North Carolina is a vermelia flycatcher. Vermelia flycatcher, and I pray to God I said that right. Another rare bird here in North Carolina. You usually can find one or two in the state, but not a lot of them. A black-headed gull. That is a bird that lives in Europe and they breed in the Arctic, and you have some that occasionally come into the United States, but it was exciting seeing it. I did get a good picture of it, which was my goal. Another species of birds that I did see that I was very surprised at, I photographed them out west in Arizona, but I've never photographed them here in North Carolina, was a rufous hummingbird. This is a bird that obviously got lost, and we saw it in September, and a ranger actually took us out to the area where this bird was, and we were able to photograph this bird at a feeder that they had set up to support and generate birds. And because the breeding season was over, they allowed us to go out there and see this rufous hummingbird, which I was very excited about. The ranger was just so nice about the whole thing. Another life bird for North Carolina was a tropical kingbird. This is a bird that I've seen in Texas. I've seen this in Ecuador. I've never seen this bird in North Carolina. We were able to get out to a Cape Lookout, which is an island that you have to take a boat to. It's just a big sand beach. And we were driving around, and my wife and myself, when we were looking at the bird, we were disagreeing about what it was. She said it was a kingbird. I said it wasn't. Turns out she was right. Don't tell her I said that. But that was a life bird for me from North Carolina. And I am just so proud of my wife for being able to identify, and I couldn't. And probably the number one life bird that I saw here in North Carolina was a Kirkland warbler. This bird I photographed at Jordan Lake, at the spillway at Jordan Lake here in just outside of Raleigh. It was a incredible thing. If you don't know what the Kirkland warbler is, there's about 1,000 breeding pairs in the world. It's a bird that breeds in pine trees that are between the ages of 6 and 10 years old. They are heavily persecuted by the brown-headed cowbird, and they actually, where these birds breed, they actually capture brown-headed cowbirds, which are a parasitic bird, because they lay their eggs in a nether bird's nest. The chick brown-headed cowbird murders its nestlings, and then its foster parents then feed it. So you can see why the biologists want to control the brown-headed cowbird. They also go out there and cut down trees so that these trees are generationally able to support these birds. But it's just exciting to see a bird like that. And of course, this bird is a bird that doesn't fly back in flocks. They fly back individually. So when you do find one, it's just very, very exciting. It was just such an exciting year for photographing birds. Some of my favorite birds that I have photographed this year was indigo bunting. Is, I think, one of those birds that, when I first got into birding, I thought the indigo bunting was an extremely rare bird. And it's not as rare as I thought it was, but I just find it exciting to take pictures of it. The long-tailed duck, this duck had a racist name at one time. It was called a squaw, which is a racist term for a female Native American. And this bird was called a squaw at one time, and they changed the name to long-tailed duck. The other birds, that green-winged teal, blue grosbeak's another bird that I really like. The green-winged teal and the blue grosbeak are just fairly common birds that you can take pictures of, but it's just exciting seeing them. When I see either one of those birds, it just brings a smile to my face. Black-backed gull is a common gull that lives in most of the United States. It is the largest gull in the world, and I think the reason I have an affinity for the black-backed gull is just because it was probably one of the first gulls that I was able to, when I got into birding, I realized that all seagulls were not all the same, and they're not even called seagulls, they're called gulls, that they were all the same. So I just have an affinity, and one of my absolute favorite birds to take pictures of is the brown-headed nuthatch. It's a tiny little bird. It's a nuthatch that lives in pine trees. They're not rare, they're not unusual, but I just really love that bird. It's just a beautiful bird to see. So that was my year in review. I hope you got a little bit out of it. I will be putting together my 2021 goals that I am actually working on now. So if you enjoyed this video at all, please give it a thumbs up. Please go to our Patreon page. We have a link below. Support this channel. Your support allows us to keep doing this. My name is Sean Leahy. I want to thank you for watching.